Today, we are diving into a huge, and I mean huge, topic, the ancient law of Moses. Now, for a lot of us, when we hear that, we think of this dusty old rulebook, right? Filled with strange, outdated, and frankly kind of irrelevant rules. But what if that's not what it is at all? What if it's something way more profound? What if it's actually a timeless blueprint for how we're supposed to live? Let's take a closer look.
So to see what I mean, let's just jump right in with a law that sounds, let's be honest, completely bizarre to us today. The Old Testament literally commands you to build a wall on your roof. I mean, what? Why on earth would that be a divine command? It just seems so random, so specific.
And it's not just that one, right? The law is filled with commands like these. Don't harvest every last inch of your field. Don't secretly move your neighbor's property line. If you steal something, you have to restore it plus a penalty. Individually, they can feel really disconnected and archaic. But here's the question. What if they're not random rules at all? What if they're actually specific data points that, when you put them together, form one single, incredibly coherent picture?
And that right there is the core idea we're exploring, that the law isn't just a list of do's and don'ts. It's a functional, practical, and maybe most importantly, an objective definition of what it actually means to love other people.
Think about it. Without a clear definition, the word love is just a feeling, right? It's a shapeless, subjective emotion that can mean whatever you want it to mean in the moment. But the law comes along and provides the objective data. It basically says, oh, you want to know what love looks like in a society, in your neighborhood, in business? Here's what it looks like in practice.
So, let's go back to that weird roof law. The principle behind it is something we could call precautionary love. That ancient command to build a parapet, which is just a low wall around your roof, well, it's the direct ancestor of our modern ideas about liability and safety codes. Putting a fence around your pool, making sure your workplace is safe, it's the exact same principle. Loving your neighbor means you are actively responsible for the potential hazards on your own property.
And this idea of love in action, it doesn't just stop at your property line. It extends right into the economy. Take the command to leave the corners of your field unharvested. This established a really powerful principle, economic dignity. See, this wasn't a simple handout. It was a system that gave the poor an opportunity to work for their own food with dignity. The modern version? It's about building systems that empower the vulnerable to provide for themselves, not just creating dependency.
Then you've got a third principle, which we see in the concept of restorative justice. In the Mosaic Law, if you stole something, you didn't just get to say, oops, my bad, I'm sorry. No way. You had to restore what you took and add a penalty on top of it. Love here is defined as real accountability. It's about making the person you wronged whole again, moving past empty words to take tangible restorative action.
Okay, so if the law is this beautiful, functional definition of love, there's a really common and honestly a very valid objection that we absolutely have to address.
Because people will rightly point out, and maybe you're thinking this right now, hold on a second, doesn't the Bible itself call the law an impossible yoke that no one could bear? If it's such a perfect definition of love, why was it described as this crushing, unbearable burden? And that is a fantastic question. It gets right to the heart of a massive misunderstanding.
You see, the burden was never the law itself. The law, as a definition of God's own character, is described in the Bible as holy, just, and good. The true burden, the real weight, was the legalistic misuse of it, the attempt to use the law as a ladder you could climb to earn your own salvation. The weight isn't the definition of love, it's the impossible task of trying to achieve that perfection all by yourself.
So here's the critical distinction. The error, the real burden, is this equation. The definition of love plus my effort equals salvation. But the truth is the complete reverse. God provides grace and deliverance first, like freeing Israel from slavery in Egypt, and then he provides the law. Not as a way to get free, but as the instruction manual for how a person who is already free lives.
So what's really fascinating is that the definition of love never changes, but its location does. Before Sinai, it was like the source code of our conscience. Then, at Sinai, it becomes an external written transcript on tablets of stone. But the promise of what's called the New Covenant is that this very same law gets written internally, on our minds and hearts, turning it from an external demand that we struggle to obey into an internal desire that we want to follow.
Okay, but was this ancient law just for Israel? Was it meant to apply to everyone else? Well, the answer is yes, but in a very specific way. It functions as a universal gold standard. Imagine there's a master weight, a perfect kilogram, kept in a secure vault somewhere. It is the objective measure. Now, a merchant in some faraway land might never have seen that master weight, but if his scale is off, he's still wrong when measured against the perfect standard. The Mosaic Law is like that master gold standard for God's character. It's the perfect, objective reflection of the judge of all the earth.
So, when it comes to judgment, people are held accountable based on the light or the knowledge they were given. Someone who had the written law is judged by it. Someone who didn't is judged by their own conscience, that law written on their hearts. But here's the kicker. When you measure both against the objective gold standard, the law, it reveals the exact same result for everyone: universal failure.
And that is its ultimate function in the courtroom of God. The law serves as Exhibit A. It's the final, irrefutable piece of evidence that stops every mouth, that silences any claim we might have of being a good person, and proves that the entire world falls short of the standard.
And this brings us to the final, brilliant twist in the story. It's what we could call the law's ultimate logic trap.
You know, we love to try and divide the law up into neat little categories: moral, civil, ceremonial. But in the original text, it's presented as one single seamless garment. The moral laws define love as purity, the civil laws define love as justice, the ceremonial laws define love as something that requires atonement when we fail. You see? It's all interconnected. You can't just pick the parts you like.
This leads to a point of devastating mathematical finality. If the law is one single, unified definition of love, then breaking even one, seemingly minor part of it means you have violated the entire principle of love itself. It's like a chain. If you break just one link, the whole chain is broken.
And this is why, ultimately, the law is described as a schoolmaster. Its primary job, its main function, is to set a perfect, holy, and just standard of love that is utterly impossible for any of us to meet on our own. It's designed to corner us, to show us that the problem isn't with the definition. The problem is with us. It forces us to realize we need a completely different solution. And that leaves us with one final thought to wrestle with. If this ancient code really is the perfect, objective measure of what love looks like, then what does our universal inability to keep it truly reveal about us and about our desperate need for grace?